Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Living Free. I am so excited to introduce you to my friend Jessica Dabdoob, who lives in sunny California with her beautiful family. And today's episode is going to be a really special episode. If you are someone who has been struggling with chronic illness, I really encourage you to tune in because I believe that you are going to find hope and encouragement through this episode. But first, I want to introduce you to Jessica. And I'm going to do this actually by reading her bio. Now, she and I met several years ago through her husband initially, but let's see here. Jessica has been pursuing freedom for others through her ministry, both inside the church and in the world of almost over 20 years now. Mother of three powerful girls and married to her husband, Paul, for 23 years. An advocate for clean, organic, non-toxic living, and approaching health and wellness as a whole being. And I love that so much. A believer in living the most authentic life possible, passionate about whole health, healing, through teaching others not only about the physical aspect of healing, but also their worth through identity in Christ. That is so, so good. So much to unpack there. But why don't you start by just telling our audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jessica Dabdoo. I'm a mom of three girls, ages 26, 19, and 11. They're all in different facets of life. It's so fun.
Wow.
To my husband, Paul, for almost 23 years now. This November makes 23. And yeah, we live in the Central Coast of California. I'm originally from New Orleans, so I'm a Southern girl, just like you, Lyly. From the South. We've been out here since after Katrina, pretty much. We've been in California. So yeah, and my husband and I have been in ministry a really long time. We also own businesses as well. Most recently in the past year, we started a church plant here on the Central Coast called Present Central Coast. So that is what is our most recent endeavor on top of still owning our businesses as well. And I've always helped people on the sidelines for almost 20 years now, even when we were back in youth ministry as youth pastors, with inner healing, deliverance, just helping the person obtain freedom and what that looks like is in living whole in Christ. So yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. And yes, I totally forgot that you are a Louisiana girl. And I do hear that Southern in you. So that is so fun and so cool. Well, today we want to talk about your journey through, chronic illness. And so I would love for you to tell us about that. How did that start? Like, how did you end up going into what you're doing now as a chronic health coach?
Well, let's see. Thinking back, I actually didn't realize until I was older and started getting diagnosed with things and the doctors will ask about your pain and your joint pain and what's your level and how long have you been experiencing pain. And it dawned on me then at age 20 something that I had been dealing with joint pain and some form of pain in my physical body as young as the age of 7 years old. So this is a long time. And adults just would give me some ibuprofen, some aspirin. They're like, "Oh, you just have growing pains. You'll grow out of this. You'll grow out of these pains. They'll go away." Well, approaching teenage years, I had hip pain, I had back pain, I had neck pain, shoulder pain. I remember constantly having stomach issues as well. So lots of stomach problems, joint pain, ever since I was a little girl.
And you
And
just assumed it was normal.
I just thought that was normal because the adults around me said, "You'll grow out of this. You're just having growing pains." Well, I never grew out of it. By the time Paul and I got married 23 years ago, so we're in our mid to late 20s, about a year into our marriage, the pain just kept intensifying worse and worse as the years went on, dealing with chronic fatigue, chronic joint pain, stomach issues, not able to tolerate a lot of foods very well. And initially they diagnosed me with fibromyalgia, which is basically, I'm not saying that that's not a real illness. I just feel like that's the first thing that they will diagnose someone with when they can't figure out what's wrong with you.
Right. Like, here's the blanket statement.
Yeah,
For
here's what we think you have, and let's put you on all these medications. The journey in that in the health, I would say, with doctors, the journey down, recovery for me and health for me was not very good for about 10 years, dealing with rheumatologists and all these different doctors who then diagnosed me with rheumatoid arthritis, I got I had an IBS diagnosis, chronic fatigue syndrome. They like to just stack these autoimmune diagnoses on you and give you another medication for each one. By the time it was all said and done, and they said I also have Crohn's disease, I was on 12 medications. 12. I couldn't function as a mom. I was so frail. You could see my rib bones. It was pretty excruciating because here I was needing help, asking for help. And instead, I feel like I have 10 more side effects from all the medications that they have me on. And I'm non-functioning at this point. Thank God for my wonderful husband, because there were times that I couldn't even raise my arms to wash my own hair. And I would sit on the shower floor and he would just wash my hair and bathe. I couldn't even stand. I couldn't even stand up in the shower. I was so weak and frail that he had to bathe me.
Wow, that is incredible. Yeah, I remember in some of your weakest moments, I remember he would reach out to a group of us for prayer. And oh my goodness, I can't even imagine that level of pain and debilitating lifestyle. So then what happened?
It was pretty bad. I remember sitting on my bed one night and looking at this bag of medications at such a young age and thinking to myself and praying out loud to God, this can't be my life the rest of my life. On all these medications. This just can't be it. And here I am getting diagnosis from them that, oh, I forgot. They also thought they said, we possibly believe you have MS as well, because we found 2 lesions in the frontal cortex of your brain. And at that time, I couldn't even hold glass things. Mayo jars I would drop. I ended up just purchasing a whole separate set of like plasticware, plastic bowls, spoons, all of that for me, because I was just dropping things all the time. I would fall as I was walking. I would walking downstairs and just fall. Random things like that were happening. And I remember the doctor saying to me, by the time you're in your 40s, your late 40s, you will most likely be in a wheelchair.
Wow, talk about the power of the tongue.
Guess what? I'm 48 and I am not in a wheelchair. And I'm leaps and bounds just so much better than I used to be. I mean, it's night and day when I think back of how horrible those days were. I couldn't even take my girls to a park because I couldn't stand long enough to even push my kids on a swing or run around and play. Paul would have to go with us, and I would end up in the back of our vehicle just laying down because I couldn't even tolerate standing for long periods. So it was pretty brutal. And we went through a lot of emotional stuff as well throughout those years, which I'll get into as well. But yeah, I just looked at that and I said, this can't be my life. And the next time I went to the doctor, it was the pain management doctor actually. And I go in with all my medications and I'm like, look, we need to start figuring out what you're going to take me off of, because this is just too much. You know, what can we start with today? And he just had this look of kind of shock on his face that he said he's never had a patient come in and ask for medication to be lowered. He said, typically they're saying, I'm in so much pain, you need to up my dosage. And I'm saying, this is too much. I'm not coherent. I can't function. I can't be a mom. Help me. Like, I need to get off of some of these medications. So I started there with really advocating for myself.
That's really good. And that's really powerful. I mean, when you think about the side effects, that was creating even more trauma. It was so debilitating. It's like, yeah, you're giving me this thing to help me, but now you've created 10 other problems. So that's very empowering for others to hear that you can really advocate for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's the first thing, is learning that you have to advocate for yourself. If you just blindly follow, which you and I like to talk about a lot, blindly following everything, it's like you have to think for yourself and think, okay, I said I was having, some nerve pain and now I have headaches and now my joints are swelling even more. Everything they were giving me was just making me worse, giving me side effects. When I got diagnosed, so after Shiloh was born, a lot of symptoms flared up again. And I do believe it was hormonal that caused the autoimmune to like flare up again. But that's when I got diagnosed with Crohn's. And honestly, they scared me into medication then. After I'd already weaned off of a lot of medications, they made me believe that if I didn't take their medication, 80 something percent of patients die. They told me that 80 something percent of patients die if you don't take this medication. So I
Wow.
took the medication. It was biweekly injections in my thighs, and I would have to go to. I went to the hospital to get them done. They're very painful. It just was like fire going into your legs. So I would go get these done. The cost alone, thank God for insurance. The cost alone was $100,000 a month for these injections. God,
That's
I mean, it's just the money industry with that's a whole nother story. But $100,000 they were charging my insurance company. That summer, I could hardly walk from the couch to the toilet because it was excruciating. The joint pain amplified times 10. I lost about half my hair, which no one noticed because I have so much hair, thank God. But yeah, I was just losing handfuls of hair. The fatigue was debilitating. It was horrible. So I contacted the hospital and they basically said, don't go get another dose. Stop immediately. We think that you had underlying lupus and that this drug caused drug-induced lupus that you'll have the rest of your life.
oh my gosh.
I'm laughing now because all of this was just looking back. I'm like, this is insanity. This isn't health, wellness. This isn't getting me to a place of wholeness and healing at all. Every time I would listen to them, and I'm not a full advocate of not seeing a doctor. I do believe there are times that you have an infection and you need medication, you need to see doctors. But I also believe that we should question the medication. We should question and not just blindly follow and just take whatever they say and just
That's
do
so
it.
good.
So
Yeah.
that shifted me on my journey of pursuing health and wellness and researching. I would lay in bed every night and instead of watching TV, I would just research on my phone, autoimmune illness, chronic fatigue syndrome, anything you could do to lower inflammation in the body. I mean, I went on this crazy journey of everything from shark fin cartilage. I'm not joking. Like Paul and I were like, well, let's try shark fin cartilage, to doing completely raw vegan, meaning like not even cooking food for 30 days straight, thinking, okay, this is going to heal me. I mean, I just went kind of nuts on the deep end of like, let me try all these supplements, all these products, and all of these so-called bad diets that are going to heal my body. And I did that for quite a bit. And that was a really up and down too. Because you just don't know. You're just grasping because you
Mhm.
just want to be better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is so interesting. That's almost a whole other topic in and of itself, all these other things that are out there. And I mean, I believe that foods are medicine, absolutely. Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, anyway, so continue.
So I think what finally resonated with me the most, well, I want to add in this as well. Along this journey, I look, when we left Louisiana, I had just lost my sister. Katrina hit. We lost a baby. I had to get a DNC from that because the baby's heartbeat had just stopped, but I technically didn't miscarry. So had to get a DNC from that. Waking up from the DNC being told that my baby's sister's gone, to my grandparents dying the next year, to Katrina hitting, devastation in the area, and then we're moving. And that in itself will just knock anybody out. I mean, even if you don't have any chronic illness,
Right.
that's going to knock you back. You know, you're going to be thrown pretty hard from that one. And so having chronic illness and dealing with that,
Yeah.
that was really rough. And so I also along this journey started pursuing inner healing, deliverance, dealing with grief, going to grief counseling, seeking out the inner as well as the outer. So pursuing wholeness in that.
Yeah, wholeness for body,
Yeah.
soul, and spirit. That's really, really powerful. Well, I mean, I'd like to go in a couple of different directions, but so first, can you tell us when did you begin to experience the breakthrough physically with the physical symptoms?
I would say my first major breakthrough was when I went on a healing pilgrimage. Paul had heard about a vineyard church doing this, and I know Ed Purick was there. I'm drawing a blank on the other guy, Mike something. And Paul booked me a ticket, booked me a little cabin in the woods. And I just went up there again with high expectation for healing. I was so desperate to get healed. Anybody who would ask to pray for me, I let them pray for me. I never let up on that. I will say, I didn't care if it was the 999th time. I'm like, this could be my day and this could be the moment. And even if it's a 12-year-old wanting to pray for me, this could be the moment that I actually experience a touch from God. I went on that journey and it was just a weekend long. And I went with high expectations as well, thinking like, this could be it. This could be my moment. And no joke, I went up there that next morning because they call people up to the front if you have chronic pain, if you have back pain, whatever, to get prayer. And I'm on my knees. And I believe it was Ed Purick that came and prayed over me. I have never in my life experienced the power of God in that way. That electricity running from the top of my head all the way to my tailbone. And I just kind of was speechless and frozen in that space because I
Whoa.
never experienced it in that way.
Wow.
It
I
definitely
even I even feel him right now. It's so wild as you're
it
speaking.
was pretty wild to the point where when I flew back home and got off the plane, Paul will tell you, he said he could pick me out from the crowd because my face was literally glowing with the glory of God. Like he could see glory all over me. And you got to realize the week before this trip, I couldn't even play with my kids I couldn't walk across sand. Walking across sand to get to our spot that Paul would set up exhausted me. I could not function. I went from that to running on the sand with my kids. This is like, it was night and day, like extreme. So
Hey,
I
God.
I will first and foremost contribute this healing journey. And it took a while for other things to fall into place, but the bulk of it, the oppressive, really intense pain that I was on some pretty strong medication. I'm talking almost morphine level. That's how
Wow.
strong medication they had me on for pain.
Mm.
And I went from that to running on the beach with my kids.
That is incredible. Praise the Lord. As you were sharing, just the long journey of this, it reminded me of actually when you said, even if it was the 999th person praying for me, it reminded me of the woman with the issue of blood, that she never gave up. Like she had been battling this bleeding for
Yeah.
12 years
Yeah.
and she just pressed in. She didn't say, well, there's that. I guess I'm going to live with this for the rest of my life. And you did the same thing. Like there was no giving up. There was never an end to hope. It's like, no, I'm going to lean in, even if it's a 12-year-old that prays for me. I don't care how I receive this breakthrough, but leaning into the Lord for that. And that's incredible. I mean, I know there's so much spiritually speaking to unpack, but anyways, yeah, you can continue.
I don't know where that comes from. I really don't, because I felt so weak, but there was just this resilience and this persistency and determination that God placed in me to always see the light at the end of the tunnel and know that this wasn't my forever, that I was going to walk in fullness and healing and health and wellness and all the things at some point, that this was not what I was destined to be. It was this sick person. So I did
Yes.
me.
Yes, pain was not going to be your story. This was not going to be your life. That is awesome. Okay, and so then practically speaking, were there things that the Lord led you to do, like with
Yeah.
nutrition or okay, let's talk about that.
Absolutely. Well, first we decided to have Shiloh because I was better. And we're like, we're gonna have Shiloh. We, got pregnant and we lost another baby. And same thing, heartbeat just stopped. This time we got testing done and they said, oh, it's some weird gene abnormality. We need to get you guys tested. So then we both got tested and they said, well, the chances of this happening again are 1 in millions. Like we don't even know how this happened. So we decided to have Shiloh and now Shiloh's here. So
Yeah.
my health, my recovery process led us to having our final daughter who's 11 now.
Yeah.
That's been a great thing along this journey is little Shiloh coming along, our fierce
Yeah.
spirit.
She is
Yeah.
such a beauty and I love her name. Anyway.
Yeah, God was showing me even before I went on that trip, I started pursuing all the non-toxic things. I'm like, okay, I need to get toxicity out of our cabinets, out of our food. We started eating all organic. At first it started with the food because that's the easiest thing that you can go after is like, we need to change the way that we eat. This is so unhealthy. And then as a whole, looking at inflammation and realizing how much sugar is just a killer in the body. White sugar, just if every now and then I give in and we'll have a treat. A friend brought something last night, and I always regret even taking a few bites of a dessert from a restaurant, because for me personally, it affects me much differently than anyone else. I can feel the inflammation immediately the next day because I eat so clean. So when I do put anything like that in my body, I notice the difference. So I know better. It's just, I still do it sometimes. I'm not perfect, but yeah, just choosing low sugar, you know, just weeding out the cabinet of all the bad oils. We only consume olive oil and avocado oil, organic fruits, veggies, meats. We hardly eat out, and most everything is made from scratch, and the least amount of processed foods as possible. Here's what God spoke to me. He said, everything as close to my state as possible is what you need to do.
Yeah,
Like,
that's so good.
ooh, I have a lot of junk in our house. At that time, I realized how much we rely on the pantry when we're hungry to fill you up, grabbing the chips, the crackers, the snacks, just constantly eating a lot of processed foods. And when God said, eat everything as close to the God-made state as possible, that really convicted me, because I realized, oh, we don't do that at all. We're consuming mostly processed things. So yeah,
Wow.
look,
Yes.
that right there in itself will completely change your diet and your lifestyle.
Yeah. And so you started to notice differences once you began to implement these nutritional changes.
Absolutely, absolutely. So to me, it was so worth it, and it took time. This wasn't, look, this was not an overnight process. This is, 10, 15 years in the making, of starting with the food, then realizing, oh, well, wait, what are we putting on our body? And then switching up slowly everything. I'm talking anything we touch, anything we wear, anything that we put on our body, into our mouth, anything that we consume. I slowly, one by one, got rid of, including, switching toothpaste, deodorant, shampoo, conditioner, body soap, what we wash our clothes in, even what sheets I buy. I won't buy toxic sheets anymore. I buy organic, and I try to buy fruit and veggie dye things. It's hard and it's a lot, but we had to slowly get to this. This wasn't, could have
Yes.
been very expensive, first of all, to do all of that overnight. It's very
Yes. And I think it's important that you're pointing that out, because there's a lot of people that want to make changes. Like, they recognize that their body is speaking to them. Their body's saying something's wrong, right? This isn't normal. And they want to start implementing changes, whether it be nutritionally through what they're eating or what they're putting on their skin, but they feel so overwhelmed because most people can't just go cold turkey and go spend $100,000 in changing everything in their house, right? So starting gradually, every small change makes a difference, and it has such a trickle effect. In fact, I'll share this story with you. When we moved into, not this home that I'm in right now, I've been here now 11 months, but the previous home that we lived in, when we moved into that home, we did not have a filtration system like we did in our previous home. In our prior house, we had been there for 12 years. And so we had moved into this new home, and I got kind of complacent. I finally restored health to my body. I had the miracle child that the Lord gave me, that story. And so I got a little bit lazy, with some things, and I was feeling good. Well, I started drinking out of plastic bottles again. Now, when I'm traveling, I'm not super uptight about that, but I try to get the ones that are better, right? The better water, the better bottle. But at home, I had full control of that, and I was still just being complacent about that. Well, the condition that I've been diagnosed with, all of a sudden the symptoms began to reoccur, like, at a faster rate, and they hadn't been there in a while. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? Like, why suddenly am I having this kind of like spike in symptoms? And for whatever reason, maybe it was just the Lord that prompted me, and he said, those water bottles. And I'm like, what? So 2 Christmases ago, I got ourselves the Berkey system. Like, we didn't have $4,000 to invest into a household, filtration thing. But I thought, well, Black Friday sales, I can definitely afford to buy our family a Berkey system. And that's going to be our gift to ourselves, right? And Let me tell you, I got it probably somewhere around Christmas and New Year's time. So I finally set it up, all the things you have to do to like clean out the filters, etc. When I started drinking out of it, it wasn't but a month or two later that my cycles began to normalize again. That was just one change. So I
Yep.
just want to say that because one change has a trickle effect on a lot of things and in your health and then that leads to other healthy habits as well. So don't get overwhelmed as you're listening to this. You're hearing Jessica's story. You don't have to change everything overnight, but make a commitment to change one thing at a time. And if you're more of like what do you call it? A strategic person, think of one change a month. And maybe it's, I'm not going to drink from plastic bottles.
Because you're moving the health needle in the right direction by choosing to do that. Speaking of hormones, even choosing to go fragrance free will drastically change your hormones, because we know that fake fragrance is hormone disrupting. So even making that simple choice to buy dish soap, laundry detergent, just fragrance free, no more perfume, deodorant that doesn't have fake fragrance in it, that's going to change everything. And like Lyly said with the water, I'm a water snob.
I am too. I know people
coffee as much laugh. But I love good water.
I know people laugh at me, or they look at me like I have a third eyeball when I say I'm a water snob. They're like, what?
No,
or they bring you like the really cheap, flimsy plastic bottles of water, and I'm like, I'm just not going to drink any water. I'll be thirsty for the next hour or two.
But hey, I do have this one, the Trader Joe's one, because I don't have anywhere to put water next to me. So for convenience, like I said, it's progress over perfection. We're not trying to be perfectionists at this, but you do want to consciously make decisions daily that are pushing you towards recovery, wholeness, healing, health, wellness. And if that means changing your water, changing your deodorant, changing one thing at a time, it makes a difference. It definitely makes a difference.
Yes. Now, you and I speak a lot of the same language, but can you just really briefly explain to people, why did you begin making these household changes in your everyday products?
Well, I think I started by reading ingredients. I'm pretty sure that was the start for me, because I realized I was blindly just grabbing products, even names that I was used to seeing. And when I started really like reading ingredient labels and laying in bed at night, like I said, we have smartphones. So now we've got, research at your fingertips any time of the day. But at night is when I would start looking at products we use and going, okay, it says it's natural, but is it really that bad? And then pulling up the individual ingredients. And there's that app, I think it was called Think Dirty, which is a terrible name for it. Anyway,
that's another topic.
And then I would see the red pop up and look at how harmful the ingredients were, that they say your skin is one of your biggest organs, and we're absorbing all this. Even, toothpaste, we're absorbing it underneath our tongue, and it's going straight into the blood system under your tongue, thinking this is horrible. Like, I need to switch this right away. So that was my thing, just being okay with asking the questions, reading ingredients, researching, and realizing that this is harmful. Like if I wouldn't even, give it to my own dog because I'm like, this could kill my dog, I'm certainly not going to give it to my children.
Yes. I would sum it all up. I would sum everything you just said as the importance of becoming an informed consumer and being an advocate for yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you. And people as a whole, and that was me included, and you as well at one point in time, we blindly trusted, but we did so for a reason. We assumed if it's on a store shelf, surely it's safe for consumption, whether it's consumption through your mouth or consumption through your skin, which is your largest organ. And everything you apply to your skin, as you're listening, folks, gets absorbed into your body. And you just assume that these companies have your best interest at hand, and I don't I'm not trying to get political here, but we also trust that our government is looking out for us with these types of things. And what I have found out through my own personal health journey and my 7.5 years of infertility and the miscarriages and the diagnosis that I received is that that couldn't be further from the truth. And the only way I was ever going to restore health back to my body was becoming an informed consumer and taking steps, moving that needle forward by making changes. So
Absolutely. I remember having an appointment with my gastroenterologist not long after I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. Asked, like, desperate, like, what do you suggest I do? Is there a certain diet that I should follow? Like, what do you recommend? Like, what can I do to help heal my gut and get myself to a state of functioning better? And this gastroenterologist looked at me and said, what you eat doesn't matter. There's nothing that you can do. It is all in your genetics. And what you eat has nothing to do with your gut. You have Crohn's, and that just is what it is.
wow.
That was an eye opener for me, because I knew about what I had studied at that point. What you eat definitely matters. What you consume and goes into your gut definitely matters. And so at that point, I just lost all faith in the healthcare system in that way to pursue it any further. When we moved here to the Central Coast, because we did live in San Diego, we've only been on the Central Coast for 5 years now. And I did see a doctor just to have one established, because it is wise if, they do still say I have Crohn's. They do still say that I have lupus. I just say that's the diagnosis that the doctors give me, but I'm not going to live into those diagnoses. But I still wanted to have a doctor as a just in case, like, let me have someone here in case anything goes wrong. Because I have had to have a couple of procedures done where they went into my bile duct and cleared it out, and then I was fine after. So a just in case. And
Right.
again, that doctor here looked at me and said, I see you're on no medications. And just so you know, 75 to 85% of patients that choose to not be on Crohn's medications, it results in death.
Wow.
I actually chuckled at him. He didn't like my response. I chuckled and I said, I tell you what, doc, if I feel like I'm dying, I'll come back and see you.
Jessica, that is hilarious. Now,
He probably has never had a patient talk like that to him.
I bet he hasn't. So, did you begin to pursue like holistic medicine or functional medicine, naturopaths, anything like that?
Absolutely. At numerous times, even right now, I go get vitamin D shots. I do have a problem with absorbing in my small intestine. And so times of the year where I'm not out in the sun as much, or, for whatever reason, I can tell that I'm low on vitamin D, and I'll get vitamin D shots. I'll get vitamin B shots. I used to get IVs like weekly or bi-weekly just to get the extra vitamins, because I could take orally even liquid vitamins and I just don't seem to absorb them very well. So if I ever feel off, I'll go get another IV. I stopped getting the IVs as much because my veins are tiny and they blow, and I walk around with bruises all up my arms, and I could see the stares from people at grocery stores, and I got tired of like being stared at like I was a junkie or something.
Or that, or they're thinking you're being beaten.
What is wrong with this lady? She looks fine, but she has bruises everywhere. So I try to get more shots than IVs these days. But absolutely, I think, it's worth investing the money and time in pursuing a holistic doctor for sure.
That is so good. Well, you and I are both firm believers that the Lord created our bodies to heal themselves, and we just need to properly fuel them and nourish them so they can do what they were created to do. But let's kind of switch gears here and let's talk a little bit about the emotional and spiritual component that you talked about, like the inner healing and deliverance. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I'm sure you've heard, the term before, the body keeps the score. The body keeps the memories. My sister passed, it's now been 18 years ago. And, there'll be years that go by that the anniversary of her death will come about and I don't cry. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm fine. And then there'll be other years where I start the day thinking I'm fine. And then as the day goes on, I have a big cry about it and releasing more grief. So there's no one way to deal with your grief and your emotions, but I will say that it's definitely directly tied to your physical body. I know, because I know what it used to feel like when I had all that bottled up inside and wasn't dealing with the grief, wasn't dealing with childhood trauma, wasn't talking about everything, shoving it under the rug, keeping it in, it to me, it literally is festering inside. And they say that your gut is your second brain. Well, I could definitely feel that in the core of me, that there was trapped trauma, trapped grief, things that I wasn't dealing with, ready to deal with, that just stayed stuck and kept me stuck as well in a place of just misery, you know.
Yeah. So what did you do? Begin to pursue that inner healing?
I just started eating up any book that I could about inner healing, deliverance, that sort of thing. I did see different specialists in that area too. A really great pastor in Louisiana is the first one that I started with, AJ Jemaine. He was our associate pastor at the Vineyard, and he's the one that started me on my inner healing journey with dealing with the grief of my sister, the loss of the baby, my grandparents, because he was around for those 2 years of dealing with that intense grief. And so he started me on that journey, and we moved a lot. So I would have to find somebody every time we moved, which was really hard. Sometimes it was just through, back then Skype, or now it would be Zoom. But yeah, finding somebody that you trust to walk you through those processes is
Yeah.
vital.
It's
Absolutely.
so freeing. And, scripture talks about it, that our bones, like our bodies, hold on to things that are emotional traumas, physical traumas, just our thoughts, just all the things that we harbor actually physically affect our health and well-being. And I mean, I don't know this for sure, but with a lot of conditions that the medical community doesn't have answers for, right? Unexplained things where they're like, well, we have theories, but we don't really know where it comes from and we don't really have a cure. It makes me wonder if so much of that is because of trauma in our lives, unforgiveness, bitterness, all of those things that we store up in our bones and in our bodies in general. So yeah, just the thought that I was having. But
And
so
you use the word thoughts as well. If you're constantly in a state of self-deprecation, self-hatred, what do you think your body is responding to if internally you're constantly saying things like, oh, that figures, or oh, I'm just going to be this way the rest of my life, or oh, this is probably because of a sin I did years ago and now it's coming back to bite me. I mean, a lot of us don't take those thoughts captive, and they just fester and fester, and your body is responding to what you're telling it. You're telling your body that it's a diseased body. You're telling your body that this is its birthright. And I say, absolutely not. That's not your birthright. Your birthright comes from Jesus.
so good. So if you could go back in time and give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would that be?
Is what you're doing today, this is my motto that I live by and help others and coach by. Is what I'm doing today helping or hindering my healing?
That's good.
Because that covers a multitude of things. That covers everything you're doing, everything. What you're consuming internally, what you're thinking, your thought process, your physical, what you decide to do to your own body. I mean, we all have a past, and yeah, I would definitely say what you're doing today, is it helping or hindering your healing?
That's really good. What's one thing you wish you had known?
Oh, geez, a lot. Growing up in the South, I mean, I'm not knocking the South. I love the South. I love my background, but I would say you kind of blindly follow. You blindly follow doctors. You blindly follow the school system, everything around you. You just believe that's your elders. You're supposed to just listen. And I just wish that I would have known a lot more. I mean, even down to, I know it's another topic, but like vaccines for my own oldest daughter, it's caused issues with her in her adult life. There's a lot I wish I would have known for sure. And that I would have questioned more and had more of an open mind, or even had, the strength to even believe like, oh, well, maybe they're wrong. I don't think I was taught that anybody in an authoritative place was wrong. No, they're right. They have a degree. You're just supposed to listen.
Right.
You know?
That's really, really good. That's very key because many of us grew up just trusting whoever was in a position of authority, and you would feel guilty if you even question them in your mind, right? How dare I question this doctor who obviously went to medical school? But yeah, one of the things I wish I had known as well is don't just follow fads or trends blindly, like actually do your own research. So that's really, really good. I have another question for you, and then we're going to close, but go ahead.
I would say something that I wish would have been solidified in me much earlier on, is my identity. That's something that we value very highly in what we do here on the Central Coast. And I personally feel like it's only been in the past 5 years of my life that I fully live into the fullness of who God's created me to be and walking out in peace. Like I don't feel like I even had the fullness of peace that I have now 5 years ago. And I know that all of this is because of solidifying my identity and who I am as his kid and knowing my worth and value. That's changed it all.
Amen. Yes. So much comes from identity. If we can just solidify that, so much in our lives would change. That's so powerful. Okay, well, so here you are now, after all the years of going through the loops and the hoops and all the things that you've gone through on your health journey and the medical system and all of that. Here you are now, a chronic health coach, helping other people overcome as well. So what are 2 to 3 pieces of advice that you would give today to our viewers who may resonate with your story?
The first thing I would say, start advocating for yourself. Don't blindly follow what the doctors are saying, medications that you're on. Ask questions, do your research. You just have to advocate.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to leave our viewers with? Any other words of wisdom?
When I was going to become a health coach, I couldn't figure out how to do it just in the marketplace, meaning without the knowledge of knowing that what sustained me, what got me through it all was Jesus Christ and my relationship with him. There were times that I was on the ground in a ball, crying like a baby, crying out to God, and he come through every single time. So I feel like, again, going back to the identity and learning who you are as his kid and immersing yourself, changing your thought patterns, digging all the old stuff out all the way from childhood, doing the inner healing, putting in the work in that way is also going to bring about the physical transformation. So,
wow, that's super powerful. Jessica, thank you so much. This has been just gold. There's so many nuggets here and so many other things that I would love to unpack, but that would require many more episodes.
I know you have to talk for hours because it's a lot.
Yes, we'd have to talk for hours. Well, to all of our viewers, I hope that this has been really just insightful, eye-opening to you, encouraging, and brought about hope, because I know that there are some of you who are walking about life struggling with something. And maybe you think that they are minor nuances. Maybe you have some chronic illness. But either way, like, we were created to walk in health, right? The Lord wants us to prosper, that our health would prosper just as our soul prospers. And so we have to take care of the soul to also experience that physical health. And our soul is the mind, will, and emotions, which we touched on a little bit today as well. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Now, in closing, I would love to ask, how can people connect with you? Where can they follow you? Where can they find you?
They can find me on my Instagram, just Jess Dabdu on Instagram, and reach out. I'm actually looking to put together a group coaching for those with chronic illness, hopefully within the next 6 weeks. So depending on how many reach out and, figuring out the logistics of all that, of what days of the week will work better, et cetera. That's the next step, is to start a group coaching call and being there for one another, as well as me pouring into you guys everything that I've learned on a weekly basis. So yeah, reach out.
That's exciting. That's awesome. I'm so glad you're doing that. And so, okay, so to all of our viewers and listeners, you can check out the description of this episode, and I will include her handles and any other ways that you can connect with her. Thank you so much for being with us, Jessica, and we will see you all in our next episode.
Bye.